And now we've got For All Mankind. Now, I missed last week because I didn't stream, so we are talking about 2 episodes here. We're talking about episodes 3 and 4. Now, when we last left off, I said I knew where we were going ultimately with the storyline this season on Mars, because one of the new characters, Miles, he's a Helios employee who goes to Mars because he thinks he can make some money for his family, and it turns out he's not making as much money as he thought, and he's not doing the job that he thought he was going to be doing on Mars, and there seems to be like a whole upper and lower class on Mars, class warfare, and so I was saying, okay, they're going to unionize. But I still think that could be the ultimate goal for this season, but if it is, it's taken a winding path to get there. Because Miles has actually found a way to make more money on Mars, and it's because he has discovered a growing black market. Now, there's just like one guy who's been running the black market on Mars, but he ends up working with him and expanding it. They even get the North Koreans as clients, which I'm sure is going to have some fun geopolitical implications down the line. One thing that I'm noticing about Miles that I probably should have expected that he wasn't going to go and unionize is he's kind of dumb, and he's kind of like going for the high risk, high reward stuff, which includes breaking into the North Korean habitat on Happy Valley Base, which is like literally considered sovereign North Korean soil. So like he literally crosses the DMZ to go and steal something from the North Koreans, and he's super lucky he did not cause an international incident by doing it. But he's also like, he sent a Mars rock home to his daughter, but it was a volcanic glass. And his wife says that she actually ended up selling it to a jeweler because the jeweler saw it, found out it was from Mars, and was like, I'll give you $5,000 on the spot for that. Which honestly, I feel like he underpaid, for a Mars rock for $5,000. So now he's like, okay, well, I want to get more of those volcanic rocks so that we can, sell them to jewelers on Earth. But he, has to like go out on his own to gather them, and he takes risks and falls down a ravine, gets rescued, but like. He's making some really, really dumb moves. Noverduck says, a lot of people who serve said that the Mars base is more or less like the military divided between the officers and enlisted. Yeah, it does feel that way, but there's also like there's like a capitalist class element to it as well, because most of the grunt labor on the Mars base is Helios. They are working for a private company, versus the upper class are like the Helios executives on base, like Ed Baldwin, and then the astronauts and cosmonauts. Those are like the upper class because they're the ones that the scientists there. They're doing like the piloting and the actual like scientific work and stuff like that. Whereas the Helios employees, by and large, are doing grunt labor. And so, yeah, there's a growing disconnect between those two. And one of the big things that's happening is there's a coup in the Soviet Union. Gorbachev is couped, and there's a new guy taking over named Korzhenko, who kind of feels like a little bit of like they want to have their own version of Putin, but he's like trying to harken back to the glory days of the USSR. He wants to take them back to Lenin and Stalin. And one of his like hardliners is a Helios employee who starts like badgering one of the cosmonauts who was a Gorbachev supporter, and gets to the point where like he's so hostile to her that she pushes him while they're like on the Martian surface in their suits, and like he falls over and tears his suit. He doesn't die, but like they have to put him in a hyperbaric chamber, and like they don't know what kind of brain damage there's going to be, and it causes a whole incident where the USSR is like, we want to bring her back to Earth to stand trial for political crimes. And they're like, wait, we're not just going to let you, like the people at the base are like, we don't, or at least the astronauts and everything are like, we don't want to just let her go and stand trial for a political crime when she was like very obviously like dealing with an asshole. But like also because the guy who was attacked was a Helios employee, kind of a grunt, a lot of the Helios people are just seeing it as like, oh yeah, of course they're all gonna close ranks around the cosmonaut and the astronauts, and let us Helios grunts take the hits on the chin and expect the cosmonaut not to see any kind of repercussion for it. So there's a lot of tension growing there. But also, because of the coup, because Korzhenko is now in charge of the USSR, because of the big regime change, there is a new head of Roscosmos, who is a member of the KGB, that's part of the KGB that investigates the other parts of the KGB. So she is like, who watches the Watchers? That's her. And now she's in charge of Roscosmos, and she gives Margot a job there. And I predicted, I don't know if I said it on the channel or if I just said it to my mom because we were watching the show together, but I was predicting that by the end of this season, Margot is going to end up running Roscosmos. And I think we're still on that trajectory. But right now, the leader of Roscosmos is a KGB agent who is using Margot to find out which engineers are hiding their mistakes so that they can be gulagged, which Margot didn't realize until one of them gets gulagged. So that's going to be an interesting story. Margot is somebody who always cared more about the science than the politics, right? Which is why she ended up betraying the US and defecting to the USSR. Because she gave secrets to the Soviets to save them from having one of their shuttles blow up because they had stolen the Challenger plans. But in this timeline, Challenger never blew up because they caught that mistake. But the Soviet intel did not correct that mistake because they got an earlier version of the plan. So she leaks that to them, which then the KGB uses to continue pressuring her to give them more intel. And the intel that she was giving was always like, I just want to make sure that the science is getting done and that astronauts and cosmonauts' lives are not in danger. So that's how she always rationalized it. But well, she ends up giving them the nuclear secrets, which is that is a big treasonous move. So I doubt she's ever going to set foot on U.S. soil again. But it'll be interesting to see where she goes while she's at Roscosmos. And then there's one final thing that I want to talk about, and Danny Stevens, we haven't seen him this season. It feels like they're setting it up for like, we'll find out by the end of this season what happens to him. But there was a little bit like more of a hint where I thought that they might tell us something, because Ed and the other Danny, why can't I remember her last name? Danielle Poole. She's the other Danny, D-A-N-I, not D-A-N-N-Y. She confronts Ed for always wanting to pull favors out and give special treatment to people that he's close to. Because Ed's kind of one of the big ones who wants Svetlana, the cosmonaut who assaulted the Helios guy, he wants her to not be extradited back to the USSR, kind of for personal reasons, where he actually has a hand tremor that he hasn't told anyone about, which, being a pilot, is a big problem. But she was also a good pilot, and she was helping cover for it by doing the stuff that he couldn't do anymore. But now that she's going back to Earth to stand trial for assaulting somebody who was politically connected, he's kind of at the point where, like, they're gonna find out that he can't fly anymore. And he hasn't been back to Earth since last season. Like, he has been on Mars for a decade. And it's kind of like the character's in his 70s now. It's kind of time for him to retire, but, he doesn't want to. It's going to be forced out of him. But anyway, in that whole conversation, Danny points out that Ed has always pulled out the stops for people that he's close to, often to the detriment of the program, because she begged him not to give Danny Stevens a spot on Helios, but he did, and Danny Stevens ended up causing the avalanche that killed like 5 people on Mars because he was, popping pills and not monitoring a situation that he was supposed to. And then she kind of like starts to hint at what happens to him, and Ed's even telling her to say what happened. And like, then she changes the topic. So they're still not gonna let us know yet what happened to Danny Stevens. But if it were just that he died, like, they would have said so at this point. I think we are going to see him again at some point. I'm just curious what ultimately happened to him. Anyway, if you aren't watching For All Mankind, please start. It's on Apple TV. It is a really good story. It's a really good show. It's alt history. It's fun to see. I love alt history kinds of things. It's also funny that Al Gore right now is the president. Because the season set in 2003. Al Gore's the president. God, how would the world have been different just if that one change happened? But I really enjoy it, and that's all I got for that one. Hey, thanks for watching. Your view means a lot. Don't forget to toss me a like and subscribe and ring the bell. I stream Mondays and Fridays at 5 p.m. Pacific and Sundays at 2 p.m., so catch me live and join in on the convo. You can find all my socials in the description below, and thank you to all my patrons, with a very special shout out to my Whale Shark tier patron Ryan D and my Anemone friend tier patron Pistol Cakes. Your support means the world. Catch you next time.